Is this the easiest way to farm divines for a complete beginner? Welcome back, and in this video I'm going to touch on how I managed to farm 123 divines, and if you include all the chaos orbs as you can see over here, as well as a whole stash of items that I farmed from the Ancestor trial league mechanic itself, you will be able to see that this might just be the easiest way for a beginner to farm divines. Because I am a complete PoE beginner, I've only played this game for roughly 2 weeks. However, for the first 1.5 weeks, I was doing fuck all. I don't know what the hell I was doing, but I was just trying to learn the game. I was trying to pick up. My net worth was probably only 1 or 2 divines, maybe 2 to 5 divines perhaps, if I'm just going to be generous myself. But in just, I would say, roughly 4 days of casual grinding this league mechanic, I managed to get, albeit with a bit of luck, up to upwards of like 140, 150 divines. So this is pretty insane. Of course, there's luck involved in this, and as you can see on the screen, I did get 2 Hinekora locks that I did sell for 84 divines. So even if you were to minus that, I would pretty much get around 70 divines, and for a beginner, I think that this is pretty impressive. You can pretty much just fund any build that you are looking to play, except for the super high budget ones whereby you want the headhunters, whereby you want your mage blood. So outside of that, you can pretty much play any build, and in this video I'm going to touch on what are the things that I have learned and how you guys can also do the same, having this league mechanic, which is one of the lowest barriers to entry for farming divines. Now, before I go any further and touch on the strategy from front to back on how you can earn or print the most currency out of this game mode, I am going to give a TLDR crash course for people that are completely new. And basically, this game mode is just a auto battler whereby you are going to assemble units and you are going to face multiple enemies. They are all AIs, they are not real players. You're going to face them in multiple rounds. You're going to eliminate all of them. You have 2 lives, so you can lose twice in this so-called tournament. You're going to enter the tournament and you are trying to become the winner of the tournament, and becoming the winner of tournament is of course going to grant you good loot. But along the way, for each enemy that you beat, for each life that you take off of each enemy, you're going to get rewards, and this can include divine orbs. This can go on to like just raw chaos. They can be different uniques. So this is where the currency comes in. So that is the gist of it, and over here I'm going to dive straight in. The first thing that you are going to encounter is this screen here, whereby once you click on it, you are going to be entering into a tournament. However, you do need a silver coin, and as you can see over here, I am currently ranked 1020, and past a certain point the mobs are going to just straight out kill you, 1-hit KO. So it doesn't really matter if someone is at 3k, it just means that they have a lot more time to grind this compared to other people that are at lower rankings. Past a certain point, you're just going to die straight out. So I would think that the difficulty has already capped out in some sense after you get 1-hit KO. So over here, you're going to see the rewards. I'm currently in round 7, so you're going to start with round 1, and this is where I'm going to explain a few of the things to you guys, whereby there is a certain amount of currency that you're going to get from a certain tribe. So these are called Fable, and using this Fable, this is where you're able to purchase the warriors from those tribes to assemble your team. So I'm going to touch on the best strategy I think for the early rounds, and that is to focus 100% on this fake currency. Okay, so having the warriors currency, having the fables is going to outweigh any of the rewards that you're going to potentially get outside of, I would say, like divine ops. Personally, I would weigh even like 20 chaos, right, to be less important to having better currency over here. And I always aim to look for enemies that are going to give me at least 2 warriors. And as you can see over here, right, because if you're a beginner to this, you might not understand, but once you understand the pricing, the lowest pricing for each tribe, you would know that this 2 currency actually does not give me any warriors, and this tribe fable would be able to give me a warrior. So look for an enemy that gives me at least 2 warriors in the early rounds each, so that in the later rounds I can focus more on the currency over here. So the proposition is very simple, strategy very simple. Early rounds focus on currency. Amassing as many warriors as possible is going to be utmost priority. I always think that the number of warriors you have is directly correlated to your win rate. It is very important. And then the next thing we're going to touch on is going to be the rewards. Of course, we are here for the rewards, and oftentimes you're going to see a reward if you are brand new to PoE, just like me when I first started playing this game mode. I don't know a lot of the value proposition for the rewards, so I would have to check them out using PoE Ninja. However, recently I did find that a Redditor named Haddoq actually posted a spreadsheet with the values for all the rewards that you're going to potentially get from this game, outside of maybe uniques and divination cards. Of course, those you can still open up the PoE ninja so that you are able to check the price to know that which are the better currencies. Into the later rounds, the focus is going to change into amassing currency, which is why you want to pick the one that is going to give you the most value. But at the same time, there is a third thing that come in, and that is going to be what you are seeing on screen right now. There's a ranking for the different enemies, because some enemies are going to give you better rewards potentially, so you want to keep them in. All of these enemies, unlike you, they only have 2 lives, so you want to try to eliminate the players that are going to be less favorable to you, and after some time you would probably not even need the cheat sheet at all. You should be able to know which enemies are going to be favorable for you to keep in the tournament, and that is how you're going to maximize the potential of you getting a really jackpot reward compared to having some of the weaker opponents in the later round, so that they are just going to give you like just jack shit, right? So you don't really want that. You want to keep the good ones there. So with this out of the way, the next thing I'm going to touch on is of course going to be the units themselves, because in an auto battle, of course the units are very important. There is a strategy involved with it, but straight up I'm going to tell you that all of the weaker units, right, all of the lower tier units are actually all usable. So a lot of times I find myself just wanting to get numbers over everything. Even until like round 7, you might still not have a full roster, which means that numbers is always going to be potentially better than the rarity of the unit. So of course, given the opportunity, you want to pick up the better units, and here are some of my recommendations. This is just my personal opinion from playing the game thus far. On the flank position, I'm going to recommend you have Sunset Sage. This is ultimately the strongest flanking unit, I believe, because of the presence of Death's Guide, which is a unit that surrounds a totem with this aura that your units cannot approach. They'll immediately die after a few seconds. So I think that having a Sunset Sage on flank is quite important. And next is going to be Field Masters. They are good at building walls to flank out other people, and these are cheap and good units. Also, Thunderbird is a good unit on flank as well, because it flies really fast to the totem. So on the flanking unit, I think that this is optimal. Next, for the attacker roles, I think that the Caldera Ravager is going to be great. The Hinekora's Horn is a bit underrated. It's a cheap and good unit. And also the War Collar, I think, is a good attacker because it's really tanky. I'm not sure why. Also, there is the Jade Hawk that is also in the War Collar's tribe. So a lot of times I find myself just picking up War Collars instead. But if you have the currency, definitely you can also go for Jade Hawk. So that is the attacker's role. And for the defender's role, I think that the Tide Collar is one of the better ones. Although the price is quite similar to Luna Turtle, I think that the Tide Collar might be a better choice given the AoE like Tsunami skill that she has. So I think that is pretty good for defense. There is also the Spear Dancer on defense that I really like because she moves really fast, and she's able to stop the channeling of the totems by the enemies in immediate notice, right? So very good unit over there. And one notable unit that I would say is extremely flexible is going to be the Spearfisher. I think that Spearfisher is really good on any role, moves really fast, and it is an incredibly cheap unit. I think only takes 600 currency. So these are the units that I would recommend. Of course, you can pick up the more expensive units. They are of course going to be better than the cheaper ones. However, given the constraints on currency, more often than not, I will just pick up the cheap ones. So the next thing I'm going to touch on is going to be the Navali tribe over here. So every round, regardless of whatever enemy you pick, you're always going to get 250 if you win, and you're going to get 500 of this currency, of this favor, if you lose. So what you can do with this is everyone just pick up the warriors. In the earlier rounds, always pick up the warriors, don't pick up the better items. And in the later rounds, you can sell all these warriors, right? Honored warrior, in my opinion, is worse than Tuatara over here. So I always keep my Tuatara and I will sell off my honored warriors. And you can sell off these warriors to whatever tribes that you want to amass more currency, albeit at half price. So if you were to buy a 250 honored warrior, you can sell it for 125 currency of any tribe to amass more of those currencies, and you can trade up. So if you only lack like 100 for a certain unit, you can just sell the honored warrior from the Navali tribe so that you can purchase that unit. As for the better items, people do have different recommendations on better items as far as I've seen, but from my personal experience, I always pick them up only if I cannot pick up a unit, right? So if I'm already full on the cap, so I don't think they are as much important. So just to give an example over here, right, for this tribe, I have 1450 currency, and if I were to pick up the camouflage Tuatara, I would have like leftover currency that I couldn't use, right? Of course, I can pick up another enriched Kuni, but I would oftentimes choose to just go with a like equipment item to put on my new unit. So that is what I would do. A few items, generally just ignore them. I don't think they're that useful at all. I just pick them up if I want to sell them to other tribes to get currency that way, right? So for half price, I'm able to sell them back to amass more currency, and that is on the currency and purchasing strategy for the units. Now for the next part, we are going to move into the game itself, right? We are going to go for the pre-battle phase, whereby there is a formation. As you can see over here, I have 14 warriors. I can use this as an example for the strategy going into the formation. So there is the defensive roles, the defenders, the flankers, and the escorts, as well as the attacker. So in terms of priority, I would say that always have at least one attacker. So you always want to fill up the first attacker role, and then subsequently I would aim to fill up all 4 flanker roles. You can also swap, like put in one defender. I like the Honored Sage on the defender role as a start, and then I'm just trying to fill up all my flanker roles with the best flankers that I have. Flankers, I think, are the most important in this game mode, so definitely fill up the flankers with your best flanking units as per what I have suggested. Of course, some other units, like generally you can see Tuatara is obviously going to be weaker than any of the other units that you pick up from any tribe. So fill up those flanker roles with better units. And then the next thing I'm going to touch on is going to be filling up the attacker roles. I think that defender role is less priority, so definitely go with attackers and try to fill up all the attacking slots with tanky units, right? So Hinekora's Horn over here is definitely one of my top choice, cheap and good and tanky. And then you also want to have like maybe the consuming kunes, like those tanky units, right? If they look tanky, they are probably tanky, okay? This is just my suggestion over here. Generally, fill up the attacker role, and then next you're going to try to fill up the escort roles. For escort roles, I like to fill them up with weak units, because I don't think it's that important for strong units to be on the escort role. Of course, if you have the luxury of having the strong units on escort role, feel free to do so, but that is not a priority. Instead, once I fill up with the escort roles, or if I find a good defender such as the Tide Caller, or if you get a Spear Fisher, if you get a Spear Dancer, these units, right, are probably going to be very, very good on the defender roles, and then just try to fill up the escort roles next. So I'm going to explain why this strategy is being employed, and the reason why is because on the higher tiers, you are going to be facing one-hit kills a lot more. So a lot of people that are suggesting for you to prioritize escorts and not prioritize attackers, I think they are really capping, because once you die, all your escort people will just like move back to your respawn location, which is the center point over here, and that would attract the enemies to gather over here, right? Meanwhile, the attackers generally go forward, so they'll try to get the battlefield in the middle of the battleground, which is nowhere near your totem. So you don't want them to be near the totem so that they would go into their banishing mode, right? We want them to go into their idle mode, their slacking mode, so to speak. So that is why I really don't like that much escort. With good units, it's a waste of their potential. Other slots can have better units, and defender roles generally do not move forward that much, which is why attackers are preferred over the defenders, because the attackers can also function as defenders, so to speak. Meanwhile, the defenders probably cannot function on an attacking role if you need offense. So that is why the prioritization is as such, in my opinion. Now moving on, the next thing is going to be the actual battle itself. So unlike other auto battlers, like I mentioned, you do have an involvement in this because you play as one of the characters. So you can move, you can help to capture the totems, you can help to banish the totems, you can help to defeat enemies, albeit at higher ranks you're not going to be defeating any enemies. So I would say you either play a flanking role or a defender role. So for the flanking strategy, it is going to be utilized a lot of the time. When the battle starts, what you want to do most of the time is going to go over to the side of the enemies and start capturing totems. As you go higher in rank, this strategy is going to work a bit less effectively against better defenders such as like Spear Dancers, Spear Fishers. It's going to be a menace if you just capture like brainlessly. So what you need to do is to win the robot, so you need to use a bit of your brain, guys. So what you have to do is to dodge projectiles, you have to banish the totems, stop the channeling, banish again, run around, have mobility skills. That is very, very important. As a role on a flanker, you definitely need to have like Blink Arrow, Flame Dash, whatever that is, mobility skills. You need those, and try to distract the enemies. You are trying to be a distraction. You are not going to be able to kill them as the level goes on, like I mentioned to you. You are just trying to be a annoying mosquito, or trying to be a really good pest at your enemy side, so that the defenders are preoccupied with defending against you, but they're not able to kill you because you are not always in the banishing mode, right? When you banish a totem, you're going to be super vulnerable. You're going to have your resistance down, your dodge down, etc, etc. You're going to take a lot of damage, and potentially, I would say most of the time, you're just going to die outright. So the aim is to play safe at the higher ranks. At the lower ranks, if you're just trying to get all the initial rating out of the way so that you can get access to better rewards, feel free to just employ a flanking strategy 100% of the time. You don't really need to play defense at low ratings, but once you go to a higher ranking, the flanking strategy is going to be a bit less effective. A lot of times you have to go back to defending, and in the defending mode, it's very simple. You're just going to throw projectiles at them, you're going to set down totems, you're going to do whatever in your best benefits to lower their movement speed. So you can use skills like Ensnaring Arrow, you can use Void Sphere to suck them in, you can put down totems to apply chill, etc, etc. So it's very simple. Defending is just keeping out of yourself on harm's way and trying to disrupt them, trying to interrupt them. I don't think you're pretty much going to kill them unless you're already having like a end game build, and in which case you're probably going to be better off farming other game modes for currency. So that is what I think. Of course, this also depends a lot on your formations. If you've picked up a lot of good flanking units, then probably you can just sit back and go on the defensive, because your flankers will pretty much just go do their own stuff, and what you need to do is just to stall out. But this is not going to be the best strategy when it comes to speed running. You probably always want to go flanking, but it's high risk, high return. So I would suggest to play a bit more defensive. However, there are some situations whereby you're going to play a bit more different, and that is when you have like 8 totems, your enemies only have like 3 totems. Because of the update on the patch itself, from what I've heard from other people, I've only played in this patch, so this is the AI that I'm used to. They are always going to target you, they're always going to home towards you, the enemy boss itself. So what you want to do when you have a totem advantage is to speed things up by staying instead on the defensive. So if you stay on the defensive, the AI and the escorts will also come. So the escorts will come along and the base itself would be left defenseless, so your flankers can go do their job. So this is an exception whereby it technically speeds up by you not going on the offensive. And this pretty much covers all the strategy involved, in my opinion, to your success in printing currency in this game mode without huge barriers of entry. Definitely doable for beginners, and the main currency printers come from the raw divines that you can get, the locks that you can get, and also the tattoos. And I do not even have like a projectile +1 tattoo myself, but personally, given that I got the locks, I'm not going to complain too much. But even if I just get 1 or 2 of these projectile tattoos, it's going to contribute a lot. So personally, I think that the Warrior's Tail over here, as you can just see, right, I just completed the round and I did get a Warrior's Tail. This is, if I'm not wrong, 200 plus 1 divine. So this is pretty much 1 divine. So this is where all the currency comes from this game mode, and I hope that you can also print currency and play the build you want, even if you're a brand new beginner. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you next time. This is Corky, signing off.